In this short video, we're going to look at what to expect when working with a digital forensics expert. In the nearly 2 decades that I've been involved in this industry, I've come to recognize that there are 2 different types of forensic experts. First off, there's a vendor, oftentimes kind of more like an order taker, and then there's experts. And I'm not necessarily saying that one is better than the other. It may just depend on your particular situation, right? So sometimes an order taker is exactly what you need. If you know the facts in the case, there's not much in dispute in terms of where to look for the evidence, and you've got, some constraints on it in terms of a budget and timing and all that kind of stuff, having somebody who can just take down the order, get you fulfilled and that kind of stuff might be exactly what you need for your particular case at hand. But an expert, on the other hand, will take a much more advisory role in it and really try to get to the bottom of your current need. And the thing about it is your current need might be different today in this particular case than tomorrow in another case. It might be you've got budgetary constraints or a time constraint, or in this particular situation, you don't know what you're looking for and you really need some advice and guidance and more of that consultative approach. And so again, it doesn't necessarily mean one's better than the other. You need to look at it on an individual basis there. But since we're here to talk about what you can expect from an expert, here are 7 things that we think you should be considering. First off is an understanding of the facts in the case, to be able to understand who the players are, what's important to you, what's important to win this case, and what's important that you need to know about where it might not be something that's in benefit to you and the client. The other thing is that a good expert should be able to draw out those constraints. And those constraints could be budgetary, it could be a time constraint, it might be something else along that lines, and a good expert's going to be able to pull that out, so that's important. The other thing an expert can do is offer multiple vantage points or options, right? You always want to be able to act in some fashion as an advisor to guide you into, here are the different options you can take, the different roads you might have, here are the pros of this, here are the cons of that, and allow you to make that decision with some guidance on there. Third is a willingness to walk away. Right? A good expert's going to know what their strengths are, what the weaknesses are, going to know when the request isn't going to be beneficial. And again, a good expert will look at you and say, hey, you know what? I wouldn't necessarily spend your resources on this because it's not going to work out the way that you think it's going to work out or something. Ultimately, that's your decision, of course, but it's important that an expert has that willingness to walk away. I love options. I think if you're asking for options, an expert's going to give them to you, but from an appeasement standpoint, just to do something the client wants just because they're asking for it, a good expert's going to walk away from that if they sense that it's not going to go well one way or the other. And that's benefit you and it benefits the expert to make sure. Next, you should be looking for an expert who has a long-term interest in the relationship going on, right? They can see beyond just this particular case and a short-term benefit. Ask questions, find out how much of their business comes from referrals from other satisfied clients on that. That always is very important. It's also important to make sure that the expert doesn't have a one-size-fits-all kind of thought process, right? I mean, if all you have to work with from a tool standpoint is a hammer, then everything starts to look like a nail. You don't want that in your situation. Some vendors, experts are tied to a particular product, a particular solution, software solution or something along that lines, or even a technique. And if your particular need is outside of that, they're not going to be able to handle that. So those are some questions that you're going to want to ask in terms of what are their capabilities, especially if you have something that's unique, maybe a unique type of email in your environment or whatever it is. I mean, again, you want to talk to them about that. So no one-size tool there. A good expert should be consultative, should be willing to spend time before you sign the engagement contract to get to these facts, to understand what those constraints are, to understand what it means, in this particular case. And, that should be, pro bono usually. So if you've got a situation where somebody's just trying to ram you through the order process, just get you saying yes, 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 you might want to, take a second look at that. And then the last thing that I've found is you need to focus on the total cost versus the lowest dollar, right? And this is especially true for organizations that charge on a time and materials basis. They may sound really enticing at $100 or $150 an hour, but recognize if it takes them 4, 5, 6 times as long to do something that an analyst at $250 or $300 an hour would take, well then what's the real cost, right? So you want to focus on the total cost. A lot of times a vendor will try to take and make it attractive from a very low cost and entry, almost like a loss leader, and then when you're in the process recognizing that you can't get out of it, that's when the other fees come into play. And I'm going to leave you with one last thing, and that is if you think hiring an expert is expensive, wait until you've hired an amateur. For this and other topics like this one, I invite you to visit our website at www.vestigeltd.com/thought-leadership. Look for the topic called What to Expect When Working with a Digital Forensic Expert. There's more information in that. Thank you.